Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalika and you're going to be a craftier person after watching this video. Ban all mobile phones at school for years 5 to 9? Sure, just expect us to find a way around this. Obligatory long time reader, first time poster, and sorry for the long story. So 3 years ago when I was in year 9, my school banned mobile phones for every student from year 5 to year 9. This meant that the students in year 10 to 12 were still allowed to use them. The exact wording was, mobile phones are prohibited for years 5 to 9 during school hours on school grounds. My class was a bit pissed off by this. We didn't really understand why they did it. The school's reasoning was that the students didn't play with each other enough, because we really didn't use our phones that much in the first place. Also, they made this rule in the middle of the year, so we felt that it was just unnecessary that we couldn't use our phones for just half the year. We weren't the only ones to be unhappy though. Usually, a rule like this had to be discussed by the student council, the teacher council, and the parent council. Not sure if those are the right words, I'm translating from German. It then had to be discussed by the school assembly, where people from all three councils were present. This rule, however, had been made by the principal and vice principal without asking anyone. They were also really strict with that rule. Everyone who was seen with a phone was supposed to get detention. After the long introductions, let's start with the story. Our class was really petty, so we immediately knew we wanted to do something about this. Also in our school, the different years were really close-knit. Everyone had connections to everyone, especially in cases like this. So we knew that if we did something, the younger students would follow our example. First, we did the obvious thing. We didn't take out our phones during school hours. Oh, you want us to do a class project where we have to do research? No problem, but we have to go to the computer room. We don't have any phones with us. Our school had 3 computer rooms for approximately 1,000 students, so you can imagine that didn't work very well. This also meant that every time someone had to call their parents, they had to go to the secretary, who had 2 phones. On normal school days, this wasn't as big of a problem. But on days where school ended early because of the head or a strong wind, that meant that every single student from years 5 to 9 had to use these phones. Our school had the rule that years 5 to 9 aren't allowed to leave school grounds unless they have their parents' permission. On days like that, the secretary barely got any work done, since she needed to use the phone as well. After that, we started to get creative. The rule said on school grounds, right? Our school had stairs running down from the school to a street. The first step belonged to the school, the second didn't anymore. Usually, these steps were used by all the smoking students, since there was a rule prohibiting smoking on school grounds, but suddenly the first step was full of students using their phones. We sat on the first step, our arms stretched out so they were over the second step. Our teachers were amused by this. They hadn't seen the need for the rule either, but our principal and vice principal weren't happy. Once the younger students started using this trick as well, we moved on. The rule said for years 5 to 9, right? Year 9 and year 10 were really close. There were a lot of friend groups between them. So we hung out with them, using our phones, and every time a teacher came near, we gave all our phones to the older students. That meant that sometimes one student would have 6 to 10 phones with them. But the rule said nothing against that. Again, our teachers knew what we were doing and let us do our thing, but the principal and vice principal were pissed. But they couldn't really do anything. Not all of the younger students were able to follow our example with this, because they simply didn't have that many friends with students in year 10 and up. So we came up with the third plan. The rule explicitly said mobile phones. This one was almost the easiest. We brought almost every device that wasn't a mobile phone that we could find. We started with MP3 players, tablets, and those really fancy calculators you can play games on. After that, we brought our Nintendos. Everyone in our class had one. We played on them every break, and once the other students had seen us doing that, they started doing that as well. Because we almost always played Mario Kart and you could only play with 8 players in one round, everyone just played with the people that stood closest to them, regardless of age, gender, or even if they knew each other. We really made a lot of friends this way. Because of this, almost all the students at our school played on the consoles. So the rule made happen what it was supposed to prevent. Our principal and vice principal were really angry at this point, but they couldn't do anything. They suspected that our class had come up with all those things, but they couldn't prove anything. They couldn't punish us either. A lot of times they tried to take away our consoles, but our parents always told them that the rule didn't say anything against them. When they tried to change the rule, the school assembly argued that they weren't asked when the rule was established in the first place, but they would make a lot of trouble if it was changed without their input. Unsurprisingly, they didn't agree for a change. Meanwhile, the school year had ended. In the new year, our class was allowed to use their phones, so we stopped our pettiness. But it had already been started, so the younger students just continued. Pretty soon after that, the rule was changed. It now said, mobile phones are prohibited during lessons, and the students went back to normal. Obviously, the friendships that started because of this didn't end though. Construction malicious compliance. Obligatory mobile and long post warning. Sorry, not sorry. First, a bit of backstory. I work as a tradesman all across the city I live near. For those unfamiliar with the construction industry in the US, a general contractor bids a job, then subcontracts it out to different companies to fulfill the needs of the job, i.e. electricians, mechanical, plumber, etc. I am a third tier sub, meaning a sub of a sub of a sub. As the saying goes, crap flows downhill. When a job goes poorly due to any issue, the blame usually falls on the people who do all the work. Let's set the stage. I was working on a massive project as the foreman for my company. Everything that could go wrong with this job did. Delayed materials, delayed schedules, drawings were wrong, so on and so forth. When jobs go this wrong, everyone starts looking for a scapegoat. Unfortunately, I started getting into the sights of the first tier sub. I would get consistent harassment from the foreman of their company. Phone calls at all hours of the day became commonplace. This dude had it out for me so hard that I would constantly get forwarded emails from my boss where the first tier sub foreman would be trashing me, specifically me, to the entire construction management team, claiming I was the sole reason this job was behind, despite the fact that nearly every trade was behind despite the job being open 24 hours. It all came to a head when the first tier foreman laid into me one day, screaming at me to do my effing job and demanded that I go to the progress meeting the next day. You know, the meeting where everyone is in suits, the meeting where they crucify the scapegoats. I called my boss, who basically said to just lay down and accept the coming storm. Now, I'm an easygoing dude. Be civil to me, I'm civil to you, even when people are crappy. I always stayed professional, but this tipped me over the edge. Cue the malicious compliance. I went into a rage and Red Bull induced spree of working for nearly 24 hours straight. I got every component in the job with the help of my crew to where I was waiting on specifically the first tier sub. I even did some of the second tier sub's work just so it was waiting on the first tier sub. Cut to the meeting next day where every bigwig is sitting down. The meeting begins with the super asking about first tier sub's progress, to which he gives a cocky smile and lays it down. I'm waiting on OP for X. Room looks at me. I politely say, actually foreman, I'm waiting on you to finish the installation of X. Look of annoyance from foreman. Well, I'm also waiting on Y. Oh no sir, there must be confusion. That's done. I'm actually waiting on you for Z. This went on for hours. The foreman got so sheepish and meek that the super had to start asking about the status of the project, all of which were waiting on said foreman to do work. By the end of it, this rather heavyset D-head was in full retreat, shoulders slouched, face red, and showing a complete display of shame. I had taken a back seat after a while, but chimed in right at the very end when asked if there was any further comments about the state of the job, to which I looked at the foreman and said, maybe the foreman should focus on his own work and do his job. He was not happy. But he never talked to me again. I was able to complete most of the project in peace following the formal chain of command. It went rather smoothly after that. TDLR. I didn't read it either. Foreman quite insult, very lying, much shame. I'm happy to pay more for this car. No? Okay. I was shopping for a new car a few years ago. I found one online that was selling for $800. So I go and check the car out with my mechanic buddy. I'm not expecting much, truth be told. An $800 car is, well, an $800 car. I am surprised, however, to find the $800 car is in pretty good condition, so I asked the seller why it's $800. I think there's a transmission problem, he says, $2,000 fix or more, so we take it for a test drive. The car keeps jerking when accelerating. I'm thinking that this could be any number of problems, but afterwards my mechanic buddy lets me know that he thinks it's something far more trivial than a transmission problem, a 10-minute fix maybe. I don't want to be a dishonest jerk, so I say, hey, I don't think it's as bad as you think. I would hate to buy this for such a low price if the problem is more minor than that. Would you mind if my buddy who's a mechanic here takes a look? If it ends up being the transmission or worse, you've got yourself a deal for $800. If it's something minor, you can up the price because I don't want to cheat you. The dude explodes. It's an effing $800 car. Either you deal with it or you don't. It's as is. Do you know what that means, you wussy ass witch? Either you buy the effing car or you don't. So I do. I pay him $800 in cash and my mechanic buddy pops the hood. He takes off the distributor cap, cleans it, replaces it right then and there. There you go, he says loudly. That should fix it now. Wow, that transmission looks almost brand new. I tell you, buying this car for $800 is practically a crime. You could probably resell this right now for $3,000. Wow, I say just as loudly. You know, I could have paid $3,000 for this car if I knew the fix was that easy. The seller is standing there, the $800 still in hand, watching. He interrupts. Hang on a second. Before he could even say another word, I closed the hood and unlocked the doors. Thanks for the car. You effing cheated me. You're not getting this for only $800. I'm not sure where he was going with this. Did he expect me to pay him more money now? Of course not. I opened the driver's side door and got in, rolling down the window. Before I drove off, I smiled at him. Either you deal with it or you don't. It's as is. Do you know what that means, you wussy ass witch? And I drove away. Don't turn in the quiz until the bonus question is done? Sure thing. When I was in 10th grade, I had to take geometry. Two things are prominent about that class, the latter being the cause of the first. I suck at geometry, and my teacher is terrible at his job. My teacher, who we'll call Zach, knew the material, but didn't know anything about teaching other people said material. He also did things that made people mad. Really mad. Things included making people start projects over from scratch after splitting up groups he assigned, saying he didn't say we could work in groups. And, my favourite, the bonus questions at the end of quizzes that made no sense, and he'd force us to finish. Now, like I said, I wasn't great at math, especially geometry, so I tried a bit more in that class to get grades good enough to pass. So come the last term of the year we had a quiz, second to last. I forget the subject, but I remember actually doing decent on it, even getting it done first. Before I turned it in, I peeked at the bonus, only to see it's nothing related to what we were just quizzed on, and something he never taught us ever, so I ignored it, despite his policy. I walk up to his desk to hand in the quiz. He takes it, flips it over, see I didn't try the bonus, and tells me to try it before turning in the rest. Fine, I'll try it. I spend 10 minutes trying to figure out what the hell to do, fail to, and go back up. He looks at my half-assed attempt on the bonus and tells me not to hand it in again until I finished it entirely. Whatever you say, Zach. I walk back to my seat and do nothing for the rest of class. I stare at the clock, ignoring my quiz. Finally, the bell rings, and I jam my quiz into my bag and leave. The next day, I walk into that class and immediately approached by Zach, and he says, "Where's your quiz?" "I have it. I brought it home with me." "Why did you do that?" "You told me not to turn it in until I finished the bonus, so I brought it home so I could have more time to do it." Zach sighs. "Just hand it over and forget about the bonus." I take the quiz out of my bag and hand it to him, going about the rest of the day normally, though way more smug. The day after that, he hands back the quizzes. I got a 95%, best in the class. Best part, no more bonuses on the rest of the quizzes or tests. At the end of the year when I was taking my final, he sent us all a text over Remind, an app my teachers used to inform students of tests, quizzes, etc., to tell us he'd been let go from his job. Apparently, so many people disliked his style of teaching and nonsense methods that they all complained to the office about him, which prompted them to have no choice but to fire him. TLDR. My teacher forced me to finish a bonus question on a quiz, so I take it home and say I did so to finish it there. He gets fired at the end of the year for a number of reasons. Okay, so that's all for r/MaliciousCompliance. I really hope you did enjoy this one. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.